So, good evening. My name is Judy Rodgers, and tonight we are going to look at this question: where is God in all of this? And which is a big question, right? And we're going to do all that in an hour. So, we'll see how we do. This is officially a follow on to a program that we had on Sunday, which was a conversation between Sister Genti, who leads the Brahma Kumaris activities in the Middle East and Europe, and who's kind of a world speaker and major spiritual figure, and Canon Lloyd Casson, who is an Episcopalian priest. And the conversation was moderated by Philippa Blackham, who's a BBC radio correspondent. So I don't know if any of you had a chance to see that program. It was wonderful. They really covered lots of territory. And so I'm going to revisit a little bit of that and maybe go in a couple of other directions as well. So see how we do in 1 hour. Now, I want to ask Kanu to put up a photo of someone, because I want to start out with a recent conversation I had with a 10th grader. This 16-year-old lives in the Hudson Valley in New York. And Kanu, do you have that photo? I want you to know who I'm talking about here.
Yeah, just 1 minute.
All right. So, and it kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that we were going to have a conversation about God, especially because this person doesn't really believe so much in God. So I was surprised that that was the conversation we were going to have. So I want you to see her, and then I want you to see the survey that she put me through. And you can also participate in that survey if you'd like. While Kanu's looking for that photo, there's actually a lot of research right now on what Americans believe about their spiritual life and their religious life. I don't know if you're coming across any of it. Some of it was done by the Pew Center, and some of it has recently been done by the Fetzer Institute. And what they're finding is that most Americans do believe in a higher power. Okay, there's Ruby. That's the person I'm in conversation with, okay? And now I want you to bring the next slide, which is the survey that she gave me, so that you can see how surprised I was as I tried to deal with this business of what our beliefs are. And the survey that she gave me is actually I think it's the survey that the Pew Center used when they tried to figure out what do we believe in, what do Americans believe in. And as it turns out, 90% of Americans, according to the Pew Center, do believe in some kind of higher power. So what they mean by higher power and how they practice, and it differs in terms of part of the country and political party and all of that. But most people do believe in some kind of a higher power. So Kanu, are you able to find the scale? So while she's looking for it, I'm gonna talk you through it. So she said to me, okay, here's the list, 1 to 7. I want to know where you are on the scale. So she said, number 1, let me see if I can read my own one here. Basically, I do not question the existence of God. I know he exists. Number 2, I cannot know for certain, but I believe in God. Number 3, I'm very uncertain, but I'm inclined to believe in God. Number 4, which is called a pure agnostic, God's existence and non-existence are exactly equal probable. Number 5, which is called a weak atheist, I do not know whether God exists, but I'm inclined to be skeptical. Number 6, I cannot know for sure, but I think God is very improbable. And number 7, I am 100% sure that there is no God. Right? So there's the list. So she said to me, "Where are you on this list?" And I said, "I'm a 1." I said, "Where are you on this list?" And she said, "I'm a 6 or 7." So that's where we started. Now, okay, Kanu, thank you. You can lose that list. So when I said I was a 1, that is that I definitely believed and knew there was a God, she said to me, "Okay, if there is a God, why is he allowing bad things to happen?" Good question, right? Why is he allowing bad things to happen? Where is he? Where is he? All these things are going on in the world. Where is God? So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Where is he? So I want to ask you to think for a minute about your earliest understandings of God, your earliest instincts about God. Now, if you watched the program on Sunday, you would have heard Sister Genti say, well, she was raised as a Hindu, and the Hindus believe that God is light. So she said, I believed that God is light. And then Lloyd Casson said that he had intuitions about God's presence as a child. Now, I can tell you that next to my bed when I grew up, there was a little glow in the dark plastic Jesus. This plastic Jesus lived in a big circle. And I'm quite sure when I think about it now that it glowed in the dark because it was filled with radium, right? I mean, it was probably radiating all these dangerous things at me. But I have to say, every time I looked at this little glow in the dark Jesus, I felt better. I don't think I thought deeply about it. I'm quite sure I just sort of trusted that this little magic charm that was put next to my bed was somehow protecting me. But I do think that children tend to have a closer access to God. They haven't started thinking yet, right? They're still feeling, they're still kind of sensing their world. So then we get to this question about, well, all right, so who is God? So I'm going to speak to you from the perspective of the Brahma Kumaris, because that's where I am now. I was raised in the same church where Canon Casson is an Episcopal priest. I was an Episcopalian growing up, very devout, went to church every single Sunday, and I also prayed every day. So I was pretty devout. And but now I'm with the Brahma Kumaris, and we have a lot of, I think, good thinking and helpful practice on the subject of God. So I'm going to talk to you from that perspective. So we understand, for one thing, that God is the spiritual parent of the souls. So you have a physical set of parents that was for the body, but that the soul, the parent of the soul, is God. And I'm not saying the mother of the soul or the father of the soul, because souls don't have gender, right? So we can, if it works for you to call it father, then wonderful, the father of souls. If it works for you to talk of God as a mother, also wonderful, that God can be the mother of souls, because souls have no gender. So the supreme, this is also the supreme source of life. So we understand this one that we call God to be the source of truth and purity and love and happiness and compassion. And this is something Sister Genti talked about the other night, that all of these things come from this supreme source. Now, we believe in terms of a form that God is both a point of light and also an ocean. And if you think about quantum theory and quantum language, this idea that it would be both a point and a field is consistent with that science, right? And that's what we understand. God is a point of light. God is also the ocean of love, the ocean of peace, ocean of happiness. So both of those things. And that there is a place, that God is in a place that has lots of names. So it's called nirvana. It's called the soul world. It's called land of liberation. It's called the land of silence, land of freedom, etc. Some people call it heaven, although we have a different understanding of what that term means. But it's a region of light beyond the material world. So this is our understanding of God, kind of at the most basic. Now, when we try to understand God and experience God, I think, I know for me, when I was growing up, I would talk to God from my physical personality. Hi, God, this is Judy, and I have something I want or need or comfort I need from you. But it would be me, Judy, on my knees or whatever, talking to God, who I knew was somewhere. I knew it was up, right? I wasn't sure beyond that so much. I think I'd moved beyond the plastic glow in the dark Jesus, but beyond that, I'm not sure I was quite clear. But at any rate, calling out to God. Now, with Raj Yoga, what we understand is that we are also points of light. So when God says, "You're in my image," his image is a point of light, our image is a point of light. So when, as a point of light, and we sit here on the forehead, behind the eyes. So when I think about God as a soul, so when I put myself in the consciousness of being a soul, and now I connect with God, I'm no longer Judy in this body calling out to God. I am the soul, his child, right? Because the souls are the children of God. And I link light to light. This is a really different experience from what I had in calling out to God as a personality, sending my message out somewhere. Because when I, as a soul, turn my attention to that one, we're now connecting in the same forms, right? I am light and he is light. And what I find is if what I need is peace, let's say I'm feeling quite rattled. I've gotten my first shot, but I haven't gotten my second shot, and I'm going to be in company of people, and maybe I'm feeling a little anxious. And so I need a little peace of mind. So what I do is then I take the little bit of peace I have, which is the nature of the soul. The soul has the same qualities as God has in our original form. When we are in our pure state with him, we have the same qualities he does. So I take my pure feeling of peace and I turn towards him with that feeling of peace and sort of send it up, you might say, right? The way thoughts work. So the thought of peace or the feeling of peace, I sort of connect in that way. And then what comes back to me, that being of light, that supreme source responds instantly to that, what I guess is a request for peace that I've sent. I'm not talking to him per se. I've just sent up that little piece of peace, and what comes down to me is a current of peace. This is my experience of being in God's presence. And so the soul is of the same stuff. This is my mother, my father. We're made of the same stuff. We have the same kind of DNA, you might say. So we originally were in the soul world with that one. It's our oldest memory, it's our oldest relationship. And when we came into the world, we began to lose some of that, what you might say, purity or fullness, or that original brightness that the soul had, which is why we got to the point where we needed to call out to him, right? So so you get to some of these questions about, is there something, and this is a question that was raised on Sunday, is there something about this particular time that makes it easier to connect to God? I guess one thing you could say is we definitely need the help now, don't we? I mean, we feel that if ever there was a time, and this is why Ruby's question, right? Where is he? If you're so certain he's around, where is he? You know, now is the time. Let him know. Let him know that now's the time to come. And we understand that actually there is something special about this time. And so Sister Genti put it this way when she talked on Sunday. She said, now is the time of transition from darkness to light. Another way to think about this time is that up until now, when the souls come in from the soul world, at first we're very pure and beautiful, we're naturally loving, we're naturally peaceful, we're powerful. But as we become attached to matter, and as we kind of live out our life or lives, if you have an understanding of incarnation, then what begins to happen is the soul begins to decline. Slowly, 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 the soul gets tired, gets weak, loses the kind of magic of its original state. And then at this time, when the world is in need of God's presence, when God enters the world in an active way, which is what we understand to be going on now, now there are two energies at work. There is the descending energy at work that was in process before, and now there is the ascending energy that God brings into the world. Now, it's very easy to see the descending energy in the world. We see it everywhere, right? We see it in climate change. We see it in civil unrest. We see it in racial issues. We see it in all kinds of violence. We see it in the pandemic. We see it in mental fatigue and mental health issues. It's very visible, this declining energy, which is why I think Ruby was asking, where is he? The ascending energy that God brings in is much more subtle, but also much more powerful. And I would say, in general, more subtle things are more powerful. We don't have time to debate that one tonight, but that'd be a good topic for some time. So God's energy comes into the world at this time when there's real limitation. And what we find is that I'm going to guess that most of us who are talking together tonight, we're seeking something. We're on some kind of a search. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be doing this. You'd probably be watching basketball or something. I'm not sure what's on in late March. Usually, good basketball. You'd be doing something else. You wouldn't be sitting around thinking about God. So there's something that is moving you. There's some sense you're picking up. There's some instinct you have about what has to happen right now. Some people are looking for God. I was not looking for God. I was looking for truth. I wanted to find out where truth was. What's the big story about human beings? What's the big story about life in the world at this time? What's the story about time? All of that was my interest, not God. God happened to be a part of that big story about truth. But some people are looking for God. Some people are just looking for relief. Some people are just exhausted. They just give me some comfort, show me the way to actually become comfortable. So there is some stirring that's going on in the world. And one way to think about it is that as the souls have left the soul world and come into matter, in some ways we've become quite limited. We've kind of gotten into a little box about what we think is true and what we think is not true, or what we can't imagine. And so in the presence, when we begin to look at these spiritual subjects, when we begin to think of ourselves as souls, what that means is, as Lloyd Casson said the other night, that means that I was here before my body got here. I was somewhere. It's not that when my body came, the soul showed up, that the soul was already there. I am, was what he said. But we've forgotten who we were when that was our understanding. We've forgotten who we were when we were luminous. We've forgotten who we were when we were completely peaceful. The language of the soul is good wishes, pure feelings, and what we call drishti. You've heard this before, the language of the eyes, that you can see the soul through the eyes, right? So when we were completely soul conscious, that's what we did. We had only good wishes, we had only pure feelings, and we communicated through the eyes. We really didn't need to even say anything. Our thoughts and feelings were so powerful. This kind of reminds you of angels, doesn't it? When you think about what an angel is or what you believe an angel is. And I'm not talking the Hallmark card kind, although they're fine, but I'm talking about really a presence. When you've ever, felt that kind of a presence, that's what it is, right? It's that good wishes, that pure feeling. It's actually quite powerful. And so when God enters the world and begins to connect with souls, what's happening is that spirit, that supreme source, is reminding the souls of who they are. And the practice that we follow is, we call it remembrance, which means we remember who that one is. We remember who we are. We start with who we are. So I'm now back to that point of light. I'm no longer Judy on my knees, calling out to God. I'm the point of light, connecting with God. I'm remembering me, my true nature, and I'm remembering that one. And what starts to happen is we start to have a change in our consciousness. We begin to see the world differently. And not only that, there's a concept in neurolinguistic programming called rapport. And I don't know if you ever studied this, any of you, but the idea is when you sit across from someone, human beings naturally imitate each other. So have you ever noticed if you go like this, pretty soon the person in front of you, they don't even notice, but they're now going like this. And then when you take your hand down, they will take their hand down. And if you turn around a little bit, they will turn around a little bit. It's a mirroring thing. Human beings do it all the time. It's our nature. It's our instinct. We're always creating rapport. The same thing goes for the soul with God. When the soul trains its attention on God, then the purity of God resonates with my purity. The love of God resonates with my love. I might just have a tiny package of love, whereas God has infinite love. But my tiny package matches, right? That resonance, that vibration with God is such that my tininess, my smallness in virtue begins to expand. I'm in rapport with the divine. What's true of the divine is now true of me. There's a vibration that's going on between us. Because we're light and because God is light, we communicate through vibrations. I mean, there are very nice holy books written, and we read classes that were spoken, etc. Words are spoken. But the fundamental communication of a soul with God is vibrations, light to light. And the vibration has a certain character. So, and you know this is true, that whatever's going on inside of you, whatever thought you have, whatever feeling you have, doesn't just stay inside of you, right? It not only is in your mind, it's not only coming out through your eyes, it's affecting your body, every cell in your body. It's affecting your heart, it's affecting your digestion, it's affecting your muscles, it's affecting the atmosphere in the room. You open your mouth and whatever's going on inside of you comes out of your mouth, and whatever words you say, right? I mean, we are inside out. The quality of our consciousness inside affects the world. So, what we're doing when we connect to God is we are purifying, we're refining, we are improving the quality of the thoughts and the feelings that we're having. So, whereas in the past, we might have had a habit of being angry or being frustrated or being frightened, and therefore we sent that vibe out. Once we learn to connect with God, God's never frightened, angry, or frustrated. And so once we have that link with the divine, now those qualities from the divine are coming into me, and that's transforming who I am. That's transforming my vibration. It's changing my consciousness. And you know that saying, when we change, the world changes. It's impossible for us not to affect everyone around us. I mean, if I am angry, then I'm in an angry house and I have angry relationships. But if I am at peace, if I am loving, if I am compassionate, if I am merciful, if I am kind, then everything I touch will be that way. Every relationship will be that way. Everything I say will be that way. That'll be the nature of my life. And as each of us, so each of us who are together having this conversation, if each of us makes this kind of a change, look how many households, how many neighborhoods, how many communities. So when we talk about descending and ascending energy, the descending energy is louder, but the ascending energy is more powerful. It's more powerful because it is innate. The soul is innately good, like God. And that's where the power is. There's no power in something that's just there for a temporary time. You know, if you have anger or fear, you picked it up someplace along the way. You weren't always fearful. You've acquired it someplace because you had some bad experiences. But there's no power in it because it's not really rooted in who you are. So, this transformation that's going on, where God is connecting with the souls are sensing God's presence, connecting with God's presence. As that happens, we begin to feel ourselves transformed. It shows up in a lot of ways. It shows up in the kind of thoughts you have. For one thing, your thoughts slow down. Pure thoughts are slower than impure thoughts. Angry thoughts are really fast, right? Pure thoughts, loving thoughts are actually pretty slow. It shows up in your heart. You know, Dottie Janke, who we're remembering all this month, who left the body last year, used to talk a lot about a clean heart. And she said that you had to have a clean heart to really connect with God. But it's also true that when you connect with God, that cleans your heart. So maybe the way to think about it is I get my heart as clean as I can, I connect with God, and then the purity of God's love for me helps me get rid of the rest. So whatever disappointment I have in my heart, whatever sorrow I have in my heart, worry, fear, etc., jealousy, competition, all those things that make me feel heavy and bad, those get cleaned as the soul connects with God. So that ascending energy, that expansion of our consciousness is what's happening right now. Now, one of the questions that Philippa from BBC asked Lloyd and Sister Genti was, how do we create this connection with God? And Lloyd gave an interesting answer. He said, this is really the job of bodies like churches and temples and mosques, and we would say also Raj Yoga centers, is to enable people to know and connect with God. Whatever your path is, you should be able to walk in the door of that place where you belong, and you should feel that it's a holy place. You should feel the vibrations of love and peace and compassion and mercy when you walk in that door. You know, holy places have that wonderful vibe, right? I mean, it's fun to walk in cathedrals and all kinds of places like that because they carry that vibe of people's love. But that's the job of those places, is to enable you to connect with God. And of course, our practice, our spiritual practice, helps us to connect with God. There are many spiritual practices. You know, there's chanting and there's prayer and there's all kinds of other things. We do a lot in silence. Our practice of remembrance is pretty much a silence practice. So it's silent on the outside. On the inside, it's not silent. In fact, let me just say a little aside. So if you've hung around the Brahma Kumaris very much, we've offered you a guided meditation, right? You've sat, I'm sure, and we've probably given you links to guided meditations. And tonight at the end of the night, I'll offer you another guided meditation. But I want to make sure you know that those are kind of like training wheels. That's not Raj Yoga. I mean, it gets you to that place. But if every time you want to talk to God or connect with God, you turn on a meditation, you're not yet connecting with God, right? It's taking you in the right direction, but eventually, after the guided meditation is over, you, the soul, in your silent appreciation of goodness and beauty and virtue, and your silent connection with God, that exchange, that exchange of that current is a silent practice. The guided meditation is to move you in the right direction, to help you have the kind of thoughts, to locate you in the right dimension. But your actual connection with God doesn't need to be mediated through a guided meditation, even though I know there's a world of wonderful ones out there. So your spiritual practice, the aim of it is to bring you close to God and to bring you close to your best self. When we do that, what happens is our spiritual power grows. Our spiritual capacity grows. What does that mean? What am I talking about? So, what I'm talking about is So we live in a world that has a lot of distraction and a lot of negativity in it. There's a lot of, as we've talked about, fear and worry. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of heartbreak. There's a lot of loss at this time, especially a lot of isolation. And we have spent our life, most of us, wanting to be in a good mood, wanting to have a good day, and thinking that the way for that to happen was that we were lucky enough that everything went our way. We check the weather. Oh, good, it's going to be sunny out, or not good, it's going to be rainy out. We we count on the things that happen outside of us to be good enough that we feel okay. And if they're not good enough, then we don't feel okay. And this is why most of us, a lot of times, don't feel okay because we have the equation backwards. We cannot count on the outside world being okay, so we are okay, because it's not okay a lot of times out there, right? There's all kinds of crummy things happening out there. People are running out of money, they're feeling frightened, they're getting sick. So we can't say, well, gosh, I sure hope I run into the right people today so I feel okay. So with your spiritual practice and through your connection with God, you're saying, let me make myself really okay. Let me make myself so happy, so loving, so deeply peaceful that I am unshakable. That nothing that happens today, nothing that anyone says to me, no piece of bad news, no something arriving in the mail or on my email or whatever, nothing is going to shake me. In fact, I am so peaceful, happy, loving that everyone I come in touch with is going to feel that vibration from me. That when I look at them, I'm not going to see all the things that are wrong with them. How I'm not going to see their brokenness. When I look at them, I'm going to see their spiritual beauty, because that's the kind of eyes that I have. Don't you all have someone in your life who just sees you as beautiful no matter what? May not be your mother, maybe an aunt or a good friend, someone who, when they look at you, they just say, honey, you're beautiful, right? That's what we all need. We need people to look at us and see our beauty. That happens because we connect with God, we become a different observer. When I feel at peace, when I feel that however I am, I'm okay, when I feel loving and loved and compassionate and merciful, now I look at you and I look at you with those eyes. I look at you with eyes of love and compassion and mercy and kindness. And so, what's your experience of being with me? Happy, right? You want to be with me because I have held for you an atmosphere of love and support. This kind of spiritual capacity is what we're all working on. When we talk about the ascending energy that comes with God's presence and how we're transformed by connecting with the divine, we're talking about that saying you've heard, when I change, the world changes. It starts with, I change my mind and my heart. That changes my body. That changes my language. That changes the atmosphere in my home. Do you believe that the energy of the cook goes into the food? Yep. So an angry cook makes an angry soup, serves it to everyone in the family. It's bad news. You got to, if you're going to go to a restaurant, you've got to pop your head in the kitchen and ask the cook what he or she was thinking about when they made dinner. Because we pick up everything in the food, right? So if we, as we are purifying ourselves, as we are making ourselves more loving and peaceful and kind and compassionate, we are purifying the whole place. The house becomes an ashram. The vibration in the place becomes a gift. Every conversation that you have becomes a gift. And the thing is, it's not just that you make it that way as long as nobody icky comes in, because we can't control that, right? I mean, sometimes angry people walk into our life, or people who have a lot of issues. We've got to be strong enough that it doesn't matter who walks in, that we hope they're touched by our kind of spiritual love for them, our patience with them, our understanding. They've probably had a lousy day. They may be having more than a lousy day. They may be having a lot of things go wrong. So rather than my reacting, well, you've ruined my atmosphere. I had a nice thing going in the living room and you just walked in and spoiled it. Instead of that, you're saying, I can tell you may not have had a great day. Have a seat. Let me get you a tea. Right? I mean, you're sending. And it's God's power connected with you that's allowing you to do that. We can't do that without God's power. It's too hard out there and we're too tired. If we're just counting on our ability to drum up those qualities, I don't think we can do it for very long. We can do it for a few minutes. We might even be able to pull off an afternoon. But in terms of a life of that, we need the support of God's presence. And once we have that, now everything we do is service. Every conversation we have, every meal we make. So sometimes people say or think that God tests them, right? That God sent me a test to kind of see if I was strong enough. And I think the Bible has a fair amount of that stuff in it, right? Job got tested and Abraham got tested. I think a lot of people get tested. And I think there's this question, well, does God send bad things to test us? What do you think? Could a God who is completely love and light send bad things to test us? No. No. What happens is we human beings, and this gets into the law of karma, which we'll talk about some other time, but we human beings, as we get weaker, we make mistakes. We do things that are not our best self. We say the wrong thing, we do the wrong thing, we are unkind or whatever. And those things come back to us. Now, if we haven't made any spiritual effort, when they come back to us, we are often really knocked over by those things. We do feel tested and challenged by that. And that's called settling karma, right? That's when people say, oh, I have a big karmic account. When we are in touch with God and we have a practice of being in touch with God, then we become quite strong, spiritually strong. So when those tests come, we aren't defeated by them. Now, I would say this, there's a little saying we have, you have to settle, but you don't have to suffer. So if you've done something in the past, it does come back and give you a knock, all right? Sometimes it's a money thing, sometimes it's a relationship thing, sometimes it's a physical body thing. But if you have become spiritually strong, you do have the experience, but you are resilient. You come right back. You understand what's going on. You keep your strength and your good wishes, and you keep moving. So it is a kind of test, but God didn't send the test, right? He's not trying to like trick you or trick me. Um, so I want to say just a word about practice, because I'm talking about how important it is to be spiritually strong. But I don't want to understate what it takes to be spiritually strong. So I'm going to guess that most of us who are talking and listening tonight have a practice of some kind. But you may not have a daily practice. And I'm going to suggest to you that the difference between occasionally practicing, which we tend to do when something goes wrong, right? We go along, go along, go along. We actually kind of forget that we have a spiritual practice. Then we have something go wrong and we sit down in meditation because we need to fix it right away. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. We have to have a daily practice because that's how we get strong. So that when something happens, we're ready. When the phone call comes, when the adverse situation comes, we handle it okay. We're not devastated by it. We're able to be of service. I'll give you a little story. Um, so in 2004, my son, well, in 2003, I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and went to work at a university. In 2004, my son and his wife had twins. So cute, boy and a girl. Ruby, who I introduced you to before, is in fact the girl. In late in 2004, I was at that university and I got a phone call from my son. Cell phone rang. I was coming back from lunch. I pull out the cell phone and it's my son. And he says, Mom, the first thing I want you to know, everything's okay. And I thought, wait a minute. Nobody starts a conversation like that. I said, what's the matter? And he said, well, we're leaving the hospital in Philadelphia. And his wife had gotten up to feed actually that same Ruby in the middle of the night. And she slipped on the stairs. She fell. The baby cracked her skull. Right. Exactly. That's what you think, right? You think, oh my God. First thing that comes to your mind, oh my God, I'm going to get in a plane. I'll be right there. Unless you've been getting up every single day and meditating. Every single day. You didn't miss any days. You sat there in meditation every day. Then that's the first thing that comes to your mind. But the second thing that comes to your mind is, let me bring the most powerful, positive, loving energy to this that I can. He does not need my sorrow. He's scared to death. He's trying to be a good dad. And that's what I said to him. Thank you for calling. I know you're trying to be a good dad and a good husband and a good son. And I appreciate this call. But I want you to hang up, focus on the family. Everything is going to be fine. Everything is going to be fine. Ruby will be fine. And I'm sending love. Now, those phone calls come to all of us. One time it's a grandchild, the next time it's your doctor, the next time it's, your bank, etc. Are you going to start meditating when the phone rings? It's not going to work, is it? You need to meditate or pray, whatever you do, every single day. That's how you get spiritually strong. That's how you pull God's energy into the soul. The soul gets more peaceful, more loving, more compassionate, more kind, because that connection is completely consistent. You don't waver. So then when the bad thing happens, you are solid. Your mind knows exactly where to go because you've been telling it to go there. Now, by the way, Ruby is fine. right? You saw her picture, she's fine. She recovered completely. Babies are very malleable, right? But my point is that you have to create a daily practice. It's really, really, really important that you not be, sometimes I meditate, sometimes I don't. You need to really make it a commitment. Doesn't have to be big and long. Maybe you do 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night, 20 minutes in the morning, and then a little bit at night. Journal, but make this date with yourself, because the world of matter, the material world is hard right now. All the distractions of our phones and our computers and all of the screens pull us out into the world and give us all kinds of rattling news. You've got to be able to break with that, turn off your phone, turn off your computer, go inside, locate yourself, and connect with this spiritual parent who is very close right now. Very close right now. So I'm going to quote something that Lloyd Casson said at the end of the presentation on Sunday. He said, God is involved at this time. We have to have the eyes and hearts to experience him. So it's not that he's not here. It's that we aren't necessarily creating the opportunity to experience his unlimited power. It's very close. And the instant that you make this quality of commitment to your life starts to change. I mean, the instant. You start on Monday, you'll feel different by Thursday. Really. So if we were all in a room together, I'd say, let's talk, let's break into little groups and chat and talk, but we aren't, we're on digital media. So I'm just going to ask Sister Kanu to play a closing meditation for you from a yogi I had a lot of affection for. He has left the body now, but his name was Anthony, and this is a nice meditation to close on. It's been lovely to be with you. Take good care of yourself. Om Shanti.
Thank you all for joining. Thank you all for joining today's session, and we'll look forward to having you all soon sometime for another exciting program. Please do visit our website and to get updates